Hey there, Taylor Elwood here, and thought I would do a live stream video on YouTube for my indie author folks. And if you're watching this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button there and then click on the bell button so that way you get notified whenever I do live stream videos or when I'm uploading videos, because sometimes I will upload videos as well. So today I thought I would talk about the topic of there being no silver bullet for self-publishing, because in my own experience with business, I have seen and certainly fallen prey to, the belief that there's a silver bullet. Back in the day when I was a business coach, I got to a point where I got tired of all the work I was putting in, the networking and everything else. And I was like, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And so I did a deep dive into online marketing. And what I didn't realize is that, was that basically I was treating online marketing as a silver bullet, and it wasn't. It, like anything else, it required a lot of effort and work and learning and things like that. And without having that in place, I ended up driving my business into the ground. So here I am a few years later, and now I'm doing the whole self-publishing thing. And I took that lesson from that experience, and I've applied it to self-publishing. So the other day in the Indie Author Business Success Facebook group, I saw someone who just put out a new book, and they're kind of like, I just don't feel like it's as successful as I want. I just launched this book. And this person's probably written a few books, and I think it's, hey, great. First of all, you wrote another book and you put it out there. So you're doing something right there. But you also have to remember, and this is just true in general, and I would say this to any author, is that just because you write a book and put it out there doesn't mean that people are going to automatically buy it. I mean, the truth is, this is true whether you're going with traditional publishing, but it's certainly true for self-publishing when you're in control of everything that you do, which isn't just the writing, it's also the publishing, it's the marketing, it's the ads, it's everything else. You're basically dealing with a simple reality. There is no silver bullet. There's no quick solution that's going to automatically get you tons of readers. You build your audience slowly but surely. And I say that with not just the experience of having fallen into that trap myself at one time, but also with the experience that I'm engaged in right now with Indie Author Business Success. So far for this, I've written one book. I wrote it in September. I started the online community in September, and I started doing videos on this channel again in September, October, and started doing some podcasts. And I would tell you that the fact that I have a book written, that I have a small group of people, that I have a small e-list at this point, and that I've got, some people on here, that's pretty good. I've started to grow a community, and I'm going to continue to work on growing this community, and I'm going to continue to write books, and I'm in the process of creating some courses and looking into some other things. But all of this takes time. The fact that this is now September, the fact that I've gotten a book written, that I've created these communities and gotten some level of interaction is in and of itself really good. A lot of people would go out there and want things to happen like that, and it doesn't. It's taken me 4 months to get to this point. And then I look at my fiction writing, which is another thing in and of itself. And so my fiction writing recently, my fiction has started to really take off. I've started selling more copies of my zombie apocalypse series. But it's taken me, I wrote the first book for that zombie apocalypse a little over a year ago in October, or I published it in October 2019. And then I wrote the second book and the third book and the fourth book this year for that series. And so now I have page reads every day. I'm selling copies, not every day, but usually some copies each day or, throughout the month. And I'm working on the next book, and then I'm going to finish up the series. My superhero fiction series that I put together, which is a trilogy, that hasn't sold that well. And that's kind of a reality of it, But the fact that I've gotten some gotten some degree of success with the fiction tells me, okay, things are coming along. But again, I'm building that community up slowly but surely. I'm writing the books. I'm doing the online advertising or the promo specials. I'm running other things. And the same thing with my esoteric nonfiction, which is actually doing really well. Well, and you would say, well, why is that doing so well? Well, first of all, keep in mind that I've been publishing esoteric nonfiction since 2003. So I have 17 years of experience there. I have a developed community, but all of that has taken time. And it's recently really bloomed because I went and I took back the rights for all of my books and published all of them under my own, under my own aegis. I'm no longer working with a publisher. And so it freed my hands to do a lot of stuff with the online advertising and the marketing for that. But again, it's not a silver bullet. I fortunately had an existing community, and I was able to put those books out there and then continue to write books. And that has in and of itself right now is my main income driver for the book sales. I mean, I think someday the fiction and the indie author stuff could end up surpassing that. But right now it's the other way around, and that's okay. And it may be that it ends up really being three streams. But the fact is that, when you look at if you're a self-publisher, if you're writing books and you're self-publishing them and everything else, you kind of have to recognize that you're on a journey that's going to take time. The only reason my journey in some ways has gone a bit faster than it would for most people is that I had a backlog of books already that I took back and self-published. If I didn't have that backlog of books, I'd still probably be working at the day job that I was at. Now, here's the interesting thing. This year, I've written 10 books, and I've published 9 of them. The 10th book right now is getting edited. It may or may not be published before the end of the year. But it is, I can safely tell you that about 1/3 of my book sales has come from the new books that I published. So that means that 2/3 has been existing books. Well, that 1/3 says a lot, actually, because it's a significant chunk. That's really good. And it tells me that I'm on the right path. But what did I do? I had to write those books. I had to publish and market them and book launch them and everything else. And I rinsed and repeated, and I got better and better at the process. And I had a couple flops in there. I mean, it wasn't like every single book was successful. Now, some of these books are going to be successful more in the long run, and I recognize that. And that's kind of what I want you to keep in mind when if you're going into the self-publishing game. Like you are, if you're working a full-time day job or whatever else you're doing, your progress is going to be a bit slower perhaps, but you basically have to be consistent with what you're doing. You've got to be willing to write the books. You've got to be willing to, get the editing and layout and all that other stuff done, make it look professional, and put it out there and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. And at the same time, you have to educate yourself about online ads, about marketing, about newsletters and things like that. Now, you can get some help with that. There's some great books out there. There's some great resources. And in 2021, I'm going to be launching the Indie Author Business Academy, which is going to have some online classes for you guys. But, at the end of the day, you still have to do the work. And I think sometimes, we get impatient. We live in a society where we kind of have we're kind of like a push button society where we want things done right now, like push the button and instant result. But that's really not how anything works. You talk to anyone who's a successful business owner, and they're going to tell you that they put a lot of hours and time in to get where they're at. And this is true whether you're a self-publisher or you're some other type of business owner. And again, I was a business coach for 9 years, and for 7 of those years, I incrementally built my business up. And then, as I said, I got impatient, and I learned a lesson from that. Sometimes we want things now, or we think, oh, we should be further along. Well, I mean, you have to put the time in. I love self-publishing at this point. That's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, because it works for me and it's a very simple system, and I like that. I don't, I'm not a people person, despite the fact that I might seem like it. I'm really more of an introvert, but I love writing, and I love helping people understand how self-publishing works, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this. But you have to have your joy and your purpose, and you have to stick with that joy and purpose, but realize it is a long-term effort. The best book that I could recommend that any of you read would be a book called The Slight Edge, which is not a book about self-publishing, but it is a book about how you basically advance in life and how you become more successful. And the author's premise is basically you do it by small steps. You create the right routines and you implement those routines and you do things every day like a flywheel. Another good book to read is Good to Great by Jim Collins, which talks about that flywheel concept. A successful business is something that is run over time. It gradually improves and you get better and better at it, but you have to be patient. You have to be willing to put the work in. And sometimes you have to make sacrifices that you don't necessarily want to make. Like if you have to work a daytime job. And again, I've been there, done that. I mean, I worked a daytime job for, after I ran my business on the ground, I worked at a call center for a couple years. I hated every moment of it, really. But I put on a smile on my face. I went in and I did the best job I could. And I actually did a pretty good job. I mean, I was definitely one of their top people for generating leads. And I was good at diffusing customers and all that other stuff. I mean, I was able to do a really good job there. I would never go back to it. But, I took that and I applied the discipline there, and then I applied it to my writing, and I just use it as an understanding that, I was going to have to put that work in, and I didn't know when I would stop working. I just kept writing the books and putting them out. I started to get an idea last year around this time of the year, because originally I was supposed to quit last time around the end of the year. And then we determined, my wife and I, that it wasn't doable. So for different reasons. But then I really began to look at it and I'm like, well, what could make it doable? And I figured out that if I wrote a few more books within my esoteric nonfiction, that it probably would be doable. And so I wrote those books. And I got myself out, and then I was able to start working on some of my other projects that I'd wanted to work on, but that I knew weren't going to necessarily be huge money makers right away. And that's kind of the truth of it. Like when you're a self-publishing author, you have to figure out what's going to make you money, and balance that with what you want to write, and figure out like the right balance, so that way you can be making money while still writing what you want to write. I love writing everything that I write, but I'll admit, like right now, I'm having a lot of fun writing fiction, and it's nice. But if I had just focused on writing fiction, I probably would still be working at the day job right now and getting ready to go into peak season. Woohoo! Let me tell you, I'm glad I'm not doing peak season this year. But I want you to remember, there's no silver bullet. This is true of any type of business. You build that business up slowly over time, and you just have to be consistent and show up. And that's not always going to be easy, but you can do it. If you really want to do it, you can do it. And that's my recommendation to you is, figure out what you want to write, but recognize you're going to have to put the work in. You're going to have to learn the marketing. You're going to have to learn and you're going to have to learn the marketing, by the way, even if you're a traditional writer. Like if you're going with traditional publishing, guess what? The traditional publishers don't do much in the way of marketing for you. You're still going to have to do a lot of the work. This is why I went with self-publishing, because you make more money that way. And I think it's just, it's just a better route to go. But if you want to do the traditional publishing route, you can go ahead and do that. But realize that you're still going to have to basically put that work out there, and that traditional publishers will still have some expectations from you in regards to your writing. I think a lot of times this is what writers don't realize. Like you go and you write a book and you publish it with somebody. They think, my work is done. Your work's just beginning. The traditional publisher has expectations of you. And if you recognize that, then you're going to want to go down the self-publishing route anyway, because it's going to be like, well, if they're, why deal with someone else's expectations when I can instead just deal with my own? So that's my recommendation to you guys. And beyond that, I just want to wish you a happy holiday season. I'm feeling really blessed and fortunate to, even with the craziness of this year, and this has been a crazy year. We're still here. We're still doing what we want to do in one form or another. You're still alive. You still have opportunities. So make the most of it, because you never know. And when you don't know, you have to make the most of what you have. So I put that out there to you guys, and just remember, there's no silver bullet. Put the work in. Do what you got to do, and you will find success. It's just going to take some time and effort, and that's just the reality of it. All right, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season.